Ed, earlier the president said that Manafort had, quote, nothing to do with his campaign. I want to play that bite for you.
Paul Manafort worked for me for a very short period of time. He worked for Ronald Reagan. He worked for Bob Dole. He worked for John McCain, or his firm did. He worked for many other Republicans. He worked for me, what, for 49 days or something? A very short period of time. I feel badly for some people because they've gone back 12 years to find things about somebody, and I don't think it's right.
Does this argument stick, Ed?
No, because he worked for the president, and it was during those 49 days that a lot of the questions that the Mueller investigation appears to be looking into arise from. And look, Manafort was a critical component of the campaign at a very important time. They were trying to shore up support from delegates to the Republican National Convention. Manafort was one of fewer than 10 veteran Republican operatives in the country who even understood how the process worked. And so he was lucky to have him, frankly. And you know, the president can try to disassociate himself now, but at the time he was intimately involved in all of the operations of the campaign. It's an old argument he's been making for quite a while. What I think is even more interesting is that the president seems to think that that report released yesterday, the IG report, had anything to do with him. That was an investigation into an investigation of Hillary Clinton's use of private email. It had nothing really to do at all with the president, other than the fact that it was the president and his supporters on Capitol Hill who basically pushed for the publication of that report at all. But a pretty remarkable day of comments from the president on a host of issues. Yeah, remarkable is right. Paula, I also want to get you to touch on that, the fact that the president's claim that the IG report exonerates him, that this was not about the Mueller investigation. What do you think he's getting at here?
Well, there is a grain of truth in this. Let's be clear. The IG report had nothing to do with the president himself. This was an evaluation of the FBI's performance in the Clinton email investigation, which the president has said was botched, it was rigged. Well, the IG found the opposite. They said, look, the outcome was appropriate, her interview was appropriate, and there was no prosecutable case. But the nugget of truth in what he's saying is that a pair of investigators who worked on both the Clinton email investigation and the Russia probe, they exchanged some text messages that were very critical of the president and his supporters. One specific text message that the IG uncovered suggests that one of these investigators tells someone else that he's going to, quote, stop candidate Trump from becoming President Trump. It's this specific text message. It's one piece of evidence in a 500-page report that the president and his allies have really honed in on. And the IG didn't give these investigators a pass either. He said about these two specific people that their text messages and their actions, they have brought discredit certainly to themselves and so doubts about the integrity of the FBI. So the president, yes, he is correct in that it validated some of the claims that he has made about some political bias existing in the FBI. But overall, this report was certainly not a vindication of the president himself. It had nothing to do with the president.
And I want to also ask you at the same time, we know that the president says that the inspector general got it wrong, that there was no FBI political bias. Can he have it both ways on this issue?
Certainly, Democrats and Republicans are trying to have it both ways. Everyone seemed to be upset with the FBI's performance during that investigation, either because of those agents that Paula mentioned who sent those messages critical of now President Trump, and Democrats who say, look, this all proves that Comey, the former director, put his thumb on the scale by so elaborately and publicly announcing the decision not to investigate and then reopening things just a few days before the election to announce that they were looking in the Anthony Weiner's inbox. So, you know, in journalism, we talk about if you're upsetting everyone on either side of a story, maybe you're doing your job right. It seems perhaps that the FBI should be living by that mantra as well. They have upset everybody. And I would suggest perhaps that they, too, were doing their jobs. But clearly, as this investigation shows, there were some bad actors and some improper steps taken by various officials over the course of the campaign or over the course of the investigation.
Paula, you know, the president also said that he hasn't spoken to his personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, in a long time. I want to play you that bite.
I always liked Michael. I haven't spoken to Michael in a long time.
Is he still your lawyer?
No, he's not my lawyer, but anymore.
Your personal lawyer, and not
But
anymore.
I always liked Michael.
Are you?
And he's a good person.
Are you
and I
that
think
he will
he's been.
cooperate?
Excuse me. Do you mind if I talk?
I just want to know if you're
You're
worried
asking me a question. I'm trying to ask
Just
it.
want to know if you're worried if he's going to cooperate with federal investigators.
No, I'm not worried because I did nothing wrong.
Got it.
Nothing wrong.
Paula, does putting distance between himself and Cohen help the president?
Probably not, because the more distance and the silence that exists between him and his former personal attorney, the more likely it is that someone like Cohen would be willing to cooperate with investigators and share what he learned when he was part of the president's inner circle. Now, Cohen's situation right now is that in New York, he is under investigation both at the federal and state level for various business transactions that he engaged in, and also potential campaign finance fraud over that $130,000 payment he made to Stormy Daniels to stay quiet about her alleged affair with the president. I've spoken to sources close to his case. He does expect to be charged with something, but he doesn't know yet if he wants to cooperate with the federal government, with the special counsel investigators, in exchange for less jail time or fewer charges. That's the calculus that he and his family that they're trying to make right now. And silence probably doesn't help improve his relationship and his loyalty to the president. But as an attorney, I can tell you that's what I advise my client to do. It'd be like, do not talk to them. Do not reach out. It could be misconstrued. Just look at Paul Manafort. Let's learn from him. Do not reach out. Say nothing.
Distance can be your friend in a situation like this. Ed, I do want to ask you, though, at the same time, he says he feels really badly for Michael Flynn, but now claims that maybe Michael Flynn didn't lie. If you step back for a second, originally, he actually said that he fired Flynn for lying to Vice President Pence. What do you make of this back and forth argument?
It's just as mind-boggling as so many other things that the president says at one time or another. Look, we know, based on reports at the time, that he misled the vice president, who then went out on national television on Face the Nation and basically, conveyed what Flynn had told him inaccurately. And that's why he's out of a job. And we know the president in recent weeks has expressed a lot of concern and sympathy for those who've been caught up in all this. Manafort being one of them, Michael Cohen another, Michael Flynn in another case. But look, until we see evidence otherwise, part of the reason he was dismissed, or the primary reason he was dismissed, is because he misled the vice president and all of the other issues that he's now facing in a court of law. So it's, the president once again demonstrated today that he has a tendency to go off the cuff, to say things that may or may not be what he really believes, or may be sarcastic, certainly in some cases are not rooted in fact. And it's just another day at the White House. The difference today was that he opted himself to go out onto the driveway there just behind Paula and do it himself in a free-wielding way, and in a way that we've never seen a president do in modern history. So, once again, it's a newsy day at the White House, and it's because the president himself went out and talked to reporters.
And just tell you guys, I thought today the big story would be tariffs on China.
Nope. It's lucky if it makes the papers.
All right. Changes minute by minute. Paula Reid, Ed O'Keefe, thank you both for joining us.